Call this meeting of the Wayne County Commissioners to order. Any corrections or addition to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I move to pay the claims of May 27th.
Second.
Unanimous.
Sorry, Mr. President.
That's all right. I'll answer whatever.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay. Ron Cross.
Don't have a whole lot for you, just to give you a couple of updates, as Denny can vouch for. We have had meetings of the revolving loan fund board, supplemented with attendance by a representative from the Economic Growth Group, Mr. Stidham, and by Val Schaefer on behalf of the EDC. We expect to be rolling out we haven't really got a name for it, but it seems to be the Wayne County COVID-19 Small Business Loan Program. By the end of next week, hope to have, we'll have another meeting set for Friday to hope they can finalize some of these draft documents and get them closer. Bringing the scoring system and the protocol to you folks just for an FYI, since you still have, I think, oversight responsibility of the operations. And it looks as if from this, at this point, that the initial funding level will be around $900,000.
Great.
$250 from allocated from the existing $425,000 plus balance that's in the revolving loan fund. $250 from a consolidated edit application that you folks will probably be seeing on the 3rd after it goes to the EDC board for their consideration on the 1st. And then $150 from the county's edit, $150 from the city's edit, and a potential of $100,000 from the ag group. So that's very encouraging. The protocols are being finalized, but generally it'll be a max of $25,000, not necessarily presumptive $25,000. Be some level of creditworthiness review. Beyond the personal guarantees of the principals for business entities such as corporations, LLCs, or partnerships, there will be no collateralization of the loans, so it'll be a pretty straightforward deal, maybe 3 or 4 documents if it's a corporation. And there will be a 0 interest rate, payment deferred for 6 months with repayment over the succeeding 54 months, so essentially a 60-month term from funding to repayment. And we will monitor loan participation and performance at the revolving loan fund board level, but we will consult with all of the funding participants before any loan is charged off or deemed uncollectible. And that's kind of the quick and dirty one, you think.
And when the loans are repaid, the revenues will be distributed back to the original provider? Is that how that's supposed to work, Ron?
Pardon?
When the loan is repaid,
Yeah, there's only one catch to one of the funding sources, excuse me, and that is the City of Richmond wants its funds to be used solely for loans made to businesses that are physically present within the city itself. So, and that's understandable. So, but basically, it'll be there's no first in, last out, last in, first out. It's as loans are repaid, since there's no interest component, it's fairly easy to keep them in an identified fund. Sub-accounts for the particular borrower, and we suggested that semi-annually there would be a refunding of monies that have been collected, so that that's not too burdensome for the auditor. And,
What about the configuration of the board making the decision about allocations?
that is, at this point, that's just going to be the revolving loan fund board. I don't know what level of communication has been had with the mayor to know if he has any interest in having a representative and kind of an ex officio added to monitor and or I don't really care. Again, these are short-term measures that under your resolution sunset at the end of the year, and that doesn't mean they can't be extended if appropriate. At this point, the plan is to at least designate a phase 1 deadline, if you will, for applications, so that it's not first come, first served. And then seeing how the level of funding is dissipated by the first round of applicants, we'll determine whether a round 2 would be appropriate, kind of like the payroll protection program did.
And Denny, at this point, all vacancies have been filled, so it's representative of the county and,
But not the only one that's not represented is the city. But they seem to be okay with that. So even the egg group has a member of our board is also a member of the egg group.
great.
So
It is a very representative
Yeah,
body.
everyone is-
It's a
Financial,
really good
real
fit, and I think
estate.
in our, you know, as many, when you got 3 bankers on the telephone with or 4, however many we had, and talking credit issues, you can imagine the dialogue. But I think we were able to keep matters as simple as possible, and I had a page load of questions, and we got them all answered. So guarantees will be required for the principals of business entities such as partnerships, and spousal guarantee if appropriate in that instance. But other than that, there will be no security for this.
which is
Right.
what we do under a
Sure,
normal loan.
normal. Well, I think the city's well represented with the folks that are on that board, the bankers.
Oh,
that are on
yeah,
there.
they live in the
So
city.
it's not, the
Right.
city doesn't have
It's
representation.
representative
Yeah, I
right
think-
now.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be meeting this afternoon to really take a look at some of the transition issues for the health center to WellCare. The biggest one being handling of program income. I think I've had discussions, fairly productive ones with Rick Boston and he with his side of his folks. We have a concept in mind. I have concerns with the State Board of Accounts, and we're trying to identify a consulting source there, but I think we can work around those. And the idea is that ultimately program income would go to Wayne County Community Health Center, Inc. to be transferred to WellCare. Because under the co-applicant agreement, the monies remaining have to go to a health center type operation. And the only options we would have would be Reed and WellCare. And I think we're invested with WellCare. I think we want to make sure they succeed at all possible. So, and as we'll talk about in this afternoon's meeting, they have developed their first-year budget predicated on the assumption that they would receive that approximate $2 million. Now, as we identify claims, potential claims, we will create reserves, and the plan is to release that money in stages with the holdback that we're negotiating. That would itself be released in stages, so that quarterly, by the first anniversary, by June 1 of 21, that we would look to either have identified all claims or release those monies that we don't feel need to be encumbered for potential claims. And that, I think, is something they can live with in their budget. Because they did get grant funded too.
So Ann's further communication in the last week has softened and there
Yeah,
seems
we've
to-
got resolved a couple of issues. Dr. Ryder has been very helpful, as a resource. I was concerned about the patient records issue. That's really not much of a concern. It's identified in the Code of Federal Regulations, and I'm working to get my head around that exactly. But Dr. Ryder indicated that in his practice they had changed ownership, gotten even new EIN numbers a couple of times, and patient records did not have to be transferred. So Steve and I are working on some logistics. There's a request from the health center to access public records or to help patient records. I think we need to have a little bit better clarification of what it is they want. Their data is already digital on a database, I understood, so I don't quite understand what they're asking for. But there's still a lot of details. I did get a comment sheet yesterday back on the lease that I prepared, the May 15th draft that I circulated, and Iowa. I'm starting to look at those and incorporate those. I did not see any real landmine issues other than the HVAC looming out there. And Steve, have we reviewed the build-out plans for the health center, or for the I know there was, I think Mason Associates has been consulted for the improvements in the building that the new health center is proposing to do.
I haven't heard it. You mean Eric proposing new? I haven't seen anything.
I didn't even know he was thinking about doing that.
Yeah.
I-
You're talking about the north end?
I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything
I haven't either.
recently.
Well, one thing we'll remind them today is we want to make sure that we review those plans.
Sure.
Yeah. I had not heard, nothing.
Remember months ago,
Well, when they got that $300,000 grant for the dental program, I always anticipated they'd with that many chairs, they were gonna get 6 or 7 more chairs, that they'd probably do it all on the north end of the building, but then, that's the only discussion that I've had with them, yeah.
At any rate, I was led to believe that there had been at least, and probably maybe just no more than a walkthrough with Dave from Mays, David Henderstock. But I wanted to reinforce the fact that if they do any type of room, you know, create additional rooms, what have you, examining rooms, I don't know what their plans are, but that can only tend to exacerbate the balancing system, the deficiencies in the system that are there now, so it's only going to get worse. So that's an issue that I think they have a concern over, but we'll work through that.
So this lease is substantively intact with just minor?
Minor, I think they're relatively minor. I've looked over them. It's maybe I think a big thing Steve and I need to get together to identify support services that they may want to continue, put a price tag on them. Trash collection, what have you. But really, I did not, other than the HVAC concerns, I didn't see anything that we can't work with. And I think the way I did it, we're just going to have to, if it fails, it fails. We're just going to have to meet, confer, and figure out participation in a project. I think right now, looking back, that $600,000 might not have been a bad deal.
The engineering funds, is that issue resolved yet? The expenses for the HVAC engineering?
We're going to keep that as a reserve.
That's just going to stay as a reserve and won't encumber the
And
lease?
then that would be ultimately, the way it'll work, the number that we agree, and we haven't really agreed, but I threw a number out, would be X dollars, and let's just say there's $2 million on June 1 in that program income account, we would withhold X dollars, release the balance. And in addition to the amount released from we would kind of credit that $74,000, and go ahead and release it to them so that they get the benefit of it, but we really got that, because we owe that, and if, to the extent we identify claims that we're going to use reserve for it, then that's just a debt we don't have to pay, so it's kind of like left pocket, right pocket in that regard.
So
It'll have
that's-
indirect cost for the first 5 months.
Well, they'll have to be paid.
Yeah.
That's part of it, the agreement we're talking about today. And again, the cost of that and breaking it down by the service provided is something they really would like to see as soon as possible so that they can get a feel for whether they want to go ahead and procure their own service or not. I mean, one of the things that I think we talked about charging them for was to monitor the security, but the way we're doing it now, I think our interest in the building is still paramount to theirs, and I think we have a profound interest in making sure that you know, now that any alarm goes into it, 911 does it automatically, and then they dispatch accordingly, and I think that's the way we want it to be. If there's alarm cost or what have you, we can pass those on, but I think fundamentally that's an expense that I think we want to continue to bear because we still have the most valuable interest in that building, our reversionary interest after the lease is expired.
So come Monday, we're talking 5 days from now, we do not
That's a good
anticipate.
song, wasn't it?
Come Monday, we expect a smooth transition of tenant,
I have, you know,
landlord.
maybe it's the holiday, and I'm an eternal optimist. There have been problems, but I think at this point, everybody's of a mindset, let's get this behind us, let's get the new operation functioning, and you know, there'll be some issues, I'm sure, but I think we can work through them. That seems to be everybody's thought. I had a very, very good conversation with their Indianapolis attorney, and we'll talk about that this afternoon.
And this afternoon is a,
Just Ken,
Right.
Dr. Ryder, Rick Boston, and me meeting, and
okay,
Jeff Plaster. Just
okay.
to throw out these ideas, see what the responses are, and then go from there.
And you'll let us know if we need an emergency reconciliation. Okay, great.
Well, I think we've done well, and Ron, I think you've done a good job in working with them to try and put a plan together.
Well, I think my letter got their attention, and I didn't mean to be overly aggressive or dramatic, but apparently that's the way it was received. Anecdotally,
It was strong.
I think the auditor received a claim for the balance that was, It was humorous, I guess, to say the least, but,
Well, I guess the only problem I've had is I've looked at, is we're taking that $2 million and doing the settlement. I can understand where they want the $2 million, you know, but at the same time, I look a little bit at the separation and the expenses that the county has had to incur to be able to help this split, where we've had the
And we will.
building, we've got the build out, and it would seem to me in some cases out of that $2 million, we ought to be able to keep 100,000 of it or something towards expenses to build a new public health department that we're putting together and everything on there, that might
well,
be.
that'll have to be talked about, because that's never been on the table. I mean, I think.
Yeah, that isn't their fault.
And
we
that wasn't
were
their
the-
idea
I
either.
mean, that's-
Right.
It's-
And-
Remember, this
It's
was
their-
our,
It's their idea to split, and
No.
so.
No.
No, not at all.
No, I don't think it was,
We
Ken.
initiated that.
That's not on them, and we could have accommodated public health in this building.
And that's,
No.
I mean, logistically, that is true. You know.
Yes, realistically.
But
it's-
in any event, there's some
Realistically, it's not
unemployment,
true.
but I'm told
All you gotta do is go to the
everyone
building
we
and see
tendered
how
an
many
offer of
people we
employment.
got there.
So we should not have unemployment claims there. That was a concern. Every staff member that is a county employee now will be, who's on the health center side, will be given an offer of employment to go with the new entity. So any unemployment will be voluntarily incurred and should disqualify him. So we should be okay there. Med claims, we're going to have to look at, I've talked to Mike Lyons, he's working on getting us some quotes for med mal tail insurance to cover protect the counties. There's a lot of things, but as you get into them and look at them, they're not in, they can be resolved, they're just not insoluble.
Good.
Good.
The
Okay,
only other final thing I'd say anecdotally, supporting Mary Ann, get to the elderberry, get tested. Wife and I went in at 8:30, no appointment, walked in, we were the only ones there, walked right out, and 15 minutes later, I got my results, that was Friday, I got my results Monday.
excellent.
Wow, they
Yeah.
do work weekends.
I went on last Wednesday after
Either that or they
it
look at
got
my age
tested.
and figure they better.
No,
find out
age
now.
has nothing to do with it, trust me.
I got
Well,
my
that's good.
results in 2 days.
We had 97 go through the other day, so I've been watching the numbers, so we've been getting it up higher
Well,
than what it was. We
It-
still,
it Totally, mine was painless, it was tickled a little bit, but totally painless,
That's right.
Great.
you know, in and out. And
it goes trip and it's done, and you go, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I had
Yeah.
trouble registering, and they just registered for me,
Good.
just like that.
I did hear from a nurse who, it took 9 days for her to get her results.
Yeah, it took me
my
2.
wife haven't had hers yet, and like I said, we did it the same day, so we'll see.
Okay, very good. All right. Matthew, come on up.
And thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for the invite.
Normally, we'd say come on near, but in this day of social distancing, we appreciate you staying afar.
No, that's quite fine. That's quite fine. So I have my Deputy Director, Aaron Campbell, with me here as well. So I have fallen victim to not getting the proper order and how I should present my grandiose ideas. So I do apologize, but as you well know, we have been trying to improve our quality assurance and quality improvement program. We refer to that as QAQI. Mentioned that several times in our operations board meeting. We presented it again, kind of this idea to them last week at our meeting. And so we've been exploring ways to do that. Our working supervisors just don't have the time to do what industry standards say we should be. Industry standards from the Association of Public Safety Communication Officials, APCO, says that we should be reviewing 2% of all 911 calls we receive. We received just shy of 45,000 calls last year, so 2% of that is 900 calls a year, 75 a month. And our supervisors just don't, I mean, it would be almost a full-time job for them, and we can't afford to do that with our minimum staffing requirements. So we were kind of exploring some ideas on how we could best handle this objective review. I like to consider it cheap insurance for us to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. The quality assurance is just making sure that we're asking the questions we need to be asking for officer safety issues or for medical calls, making sure that information is being passed on to responders, making sure that responders are being dispatched in the appropriate time, and just making sure that we're got everything buttoned up, doing what we're supposed to be doing. So that's kind of what the quality assurance is, just like on an assembly line at a factory, making sure that the product coming out is same and what is expected. So we sat down with Mrs. Klauser and explored some ideas. She suggested that instead of actually making it a county employee, it would be like a part-time position. Instead of making it a county employee, maybe look at having it be a contracted position or positions, simply due to some of the unique parameters around it, being that wouldn't necessarily be paid by the hour. A lot of the companies that do this, they do it by the job, so to speak, so it's paid by review. And it would be hard to police hours if people worked remotely, and then that would fall on the department head as being responsible for, accountable for those hours and being able to prove that and that kind of thing. So I hadn't really thought about that, so we kind of explored that. And then we've also had a lot of issues. I thought, well, now's not the time to be coming to council to ask for more money for this kind of a new position or just an increase in my contractual line item. So Aaron and I kind of started looking at our part-time positions that we have. And we've had some issues with our part-time spots through the years and just being able to keep them staffed and fully trained. She's pulled some numbers. I'll have her, if you don't care to share some of those with you, just to kind of give you a picture of why I'm thinking about moving that money.
So I pulled these rather quickly this morning. So I just went back historically, and I started in November of 2014 with how we've staffed our part-time. So we have 4 part-time positions, and since November of 2014, it's only been staffed, well, it hasn't been fully staffed and fully trained at all. In December of 2014, we were able to add a 4th part-timer, but it quickly changed, and by March of 2015, we were back down to 3. Then jumping to April of 2015, we were still at 3. January of 16, we had 4, but by June of 16, we were back down to 3. We spent all of 2017 working with 2 part-timers, and our dispatchers spent the rest of 2017 training 2 part-timers, and they were both failure to train. So we had 2 part-timers that were working. One's a full-time firefighter, another a full-time mom who had no interest in working but part-time, and we spent the rest of the year spending lots of money and time training 2 that didn't make it. And then by December of 2017, we were down to 1 part-timer. And in January of 2018, we were able to bump it up to 3. By March of 18, we were at a different 3. And one of those was a failure to train. By July of 18, we were up to 4, but by October, 2 of them were gone. And we worked the rest of 2018 with 2. In 2019, we did start out with 4, but by April of 2019, we were down to 2, and one of them was in training. In June of 19, we were at 3, and one of them was in training. And in August of 2019, we had 3, and one of them was in training. And currently, we have 3 of the spots filled, and they are all fully trained, and that has been the first time in a while. So that's kind of where the numbers stand. But prior to 2014 was probably the first time it was fully staffed and fully trained. It's been years since it's been.
The budget is for 4. You've hardly ever been able to attain that.
No.
You average probably 2.5, but.
Yeah.
So my question is, if this money then is taken from that 4th part-time person and used put into contractual, which would allow you to sub out this work. Would you be okay with keeping your part-time staff at 3?
We've looked at that because we fully understand that if we give up this position, it's going to be very hard and difficult to justify ever trying to go back and ask for
Yes. Mhm.
to have it back.
Sure.
And we feel at this point in time, it is better invested in the quality assurance, quality improvement program than it has been for us in our part-time position.
Okay.
And it's not a decision we came to lightly because I certainly don't want to, and I don't view it as giving one up, but I understand on paper it sure is that, exact thing. For me, it's investing money in my current employees, making sure that we're doing the best job that we can and should be doing, instead of this what has been a revolving door. Now, sometimes the part-time positions, it's because they've moved up to full-time for us. Other times we've had, perfect example, one of our new full-time new part-time dispatchers was hired in November. She was just released last week. So a part-time person, when they can only give us an 8-hour shift, maybe once a week, it takes them about 7 to 8 months to get trained, and she was a quick train, believe it or not. So when you're looking at a part-time person that comes to you with no experience, it's just a lot of time and investment in that. So my thinking was to save money then is just, as you mentioned, repurpose that money in the contractual. And so that's where
I think it's very wise. I think what
we
you're
were
doing makes sense.
looking to go to personnel and or council.
Yeah.
Your memorandum was very comprehensive and appreciated getting the background in writing, but
No, absolutely.
having this conversation, I think, is very nutritious to really get inside, and really appreciate you giving that 6-year background that really gives an insight into it. And what this tells me is that a lot of time, resources, energy, and expense has been committed to training these part-timers who've had extraordinary turnover. It's taken a lot out of management to do this training, only to have failure to train occur far too much. It is disruptive to have that level of turnover. So is this perhaps time to examine whether perhaps these current 4 positions should be examined to have 2 or more of them to be converted to a full-time, or maybe even examine converting some of these 12-hour shifts to 8-hour shifts to accommodate some of the reasons why people do not, why some people do seek something less than a 12-hour shift. I mean, now that we're examining the configuration of personnel, have you considered possibly the configuration of that 4 part-time configuration?
Well, not to that extent. We have looked at whether we need to have an additional position for we call it a tactical position during our busiest hours, which is normally like 2 p.m. to midnight or 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. But I don't think our current call volume would support that at this point in time. I would have a hard time standing up here trying to justify that
Okay.
as I stand here today, without having any specific numbers for you. I just don't think I can justify that at this point in time.
You
the
do
need
like
for that.
having a part-time
I do,
element to your workforce structure.
and it has helped us keeping my overtime costs down. I've always prided myself in that I have a budget of just a little over $25,000 for overtime, and when I hear other 24-hour agencies, even in the county and city, they're paying way more in overtime expenses than we are. So I've always prided myself on that, Last year, we only had, I believe, the 2 part-time positions, and we had a lot of full-time staffing shortages. So I did have to ask for more overtime money last year, and that was the first time I've ever gone over that budget.
Because you only had 2.
Because I only had
So you
2.
do need 3, but maybe not 4.
Exactly.
3
are-
seems to be just right.
Right, and this is, our third part-time person was just released from training, and she has good availability, so we are very young in having 3 fully trained, and we haven't had that in years where they were actually fully trained. So we're very young in that, and to see how that would work out for us, and we are also fully staffed. So we're in a very sweet spot right now to see how we function.
One of your greatest problems is that your part-time people move up to full-time.
In
You're
some cases.
succeeding yourself into a problem, but that allows you to plan for that, so you can work from a part-time hiring list. Do you have a part-time hiring list?
We've traditionally done that, and we have, of course, opened it up in-house. Any full-time positions, open it up in-house. There have been times the part-time people have taken advantage of that and moved into a full-time spot. I myself did that in 2012. That's how I came back to the county full-time, is I was working part-time, and it was opened up in-house, and I came back to a full-time status in 2012. So that has been successful for us. The flip side of that is if we are bringing in someone new and we don't bring them from necessarily a succession or the part-time, it's much easier to train an individual when I've got them for 40 hours a week and it's guaranteed 40 hours a week, as opposed to hit and miss whenever they have the availability. Because as an employer, it's hard for me to go to a part-time person or an as-needed position and say, you have to give me 12 hours a week when they're working full-time or, depending on what their schedule is at their other job. And some of it is, I think, my personal opinion, there's some of it's just kind of the work ethic right now. A lot of people don't necessarily want a part-time job on top of 40-plus hours that they're working, and I can respect that absolutely.
But you're fortunate to have 3 dedicated, really want part-time. How many hours are those part-time people working?
Our policy is the absolute minimum that they have to work, they have to give us 6 hours a month to remain active. And then, of course, the maximum is 29 hours a week,
Yeah.
or until their line item runs out. But we've never had that be an issue. I would love for that to be an issue sometime. So to give an average, each one's just a little different. I don't know, what do you think? You think we're getting 8 out of all 3? Are we getting 8 to 12 a week?
I'd say that's average. I'd say
Without
10.
Yeah, without having done the exact math, I'd say gut instinct, 8 to 12 hours a week that we're getting from all 3 that we currently have.
So with 4 part-time positions in the budget, you feel that converting that 4th part-time position to a consulting budget line item has allowed enough to hire a quality consultant to do that quality position? Do you know how much is remaining with 5 months in and having, you've been more fully part-time staff? Do you know how much is shortfall on your budget expenditure? Do you know how much you have left to hire that consultant?
Yes, I have, in that particular line item, I have $8,650.
Is that sufficient to bring on a consultant for
The
the balance of the
the
year?
going rate for quality assurance, quality review, seems to be, what research we've done, around the $7 to $8 per review area. So if you do your math, that's about $7,200 if we did the 900, and that's at the $8. If we did 900 reviews at $8 a review, I got $7,200. So that's well within that amount that I have remaining, even if it were to go
So
forward
with
this year.
roughly 7 months to go or 500 reviews to go, that's well within, I mean, 900 a year, but that would only be about 500 with 7 months to go, so you would have adequate funds at that pro rata rate of $8 per review. So you do have ample funds to make that request of council.
Yes.
Because
Without
they're-
having to ask for anything additional.
Right, and even if you do have a spike in our demand, if God forbid we have a flood or something like that, so even if you do have to tap into your part-time hours, you're in good shape.
As we stand here today, yes.
You've got a cushion on part-time, you have adequate for the QA/QR. So I move that we support this request for the line item movement to eliminate the fourth part-time position and move it into the consulting fee for
Contractual.
QA/QR.
Second.
Unanimous.
So you can go sally forth on Wednesday with full unanimous support of the commissioners, Matthew.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Wish you-
I
wish
appreciate
you
that.
well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See, we don't bite.
I know you don't. And that wasn't the reason. I just never know who I need to go to first.
Well, yeah,
I'll just always go to you, and then you
default
can
to
say you're
us,
wasting
we're
my
your
time.
friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy had something come up, so she's not going to be able to be with us
Oh,
this
no.
morning. She
I
did
have
have some
questions.
forms that she's going to get into us to sign, and do you have? Oh, okay, why
There's
don't
a
you?
third that I have that I've worked with Kim Vessel's in city law, and that is a site access agreement,
Okay,
because the area that we're talking about is, part of it is owned by the city of Richmond, you know. So, and I've looked at it, there's one question I have, I'll get with Kim on it. I assume that Amy's aware of that.
I think.
Heine
probably.
Road is owned by the city of Richmond?
Pardon?
We're talking Heine Road?
No, we're
Oh,
talking
G
about
G
Street.
Street
Oh,
Bridge.
okay. There's two
There's a
different.
path, there's a rough path under there that the
Right,
city
yeah,
has, and they, although I
Right.
don't think it'd be a stretch to say they maintain it. But,
yeah,
that's the subject of the site access.
Right.
Hoosier Pride's gonna need to do some upgrading of the pathway to get their equipment in there. I'll get with Kim on that, so I did not have any terrible issues with the Hoosier Pride proposal, but the insurance piece I wanted to make sure was in place to protect the county.
okay. She was looking to try and get approval from us today on that. If we have any specific questions on that, I could get her on the phone. But if you'll recall, Bob explained to us what they needed to do under the G Street Bridge there in that area, and that's what Hoosier Pride's going to be doing there.
I think the overall project is substructure support for the bridge itself, and this is just the way they have to access it.
Yeah, I think G Street has a real timeliness to it. At
Right.
Heine Road, I had some questions, but
Okay.
G
Let's
Street,
do-
I
you're-
didn't.
You're okay with G Street?
Yeah, I'm
And
okay
Ron?
with G Street.
Did
If
you
you're
say
okay, Ron,
You're okay with G Street?
if we move forward, or you want to resolve that with engineering?
There's just this agreement that I think is gonna have to be finalized, because it does involve signatures of Wayne County. And I just wanna make sure that cities, this is the
City
final
what?
draft, but she was reviewing it with her engineering folks too, so.
Okay. Do you
I-
want us
I
to
have-
approve it based on,
Subject to finalization.
Okay,
So
all right.
There's
So
nothing in here
moved.
that's terribly
All right.
complex.
Second.
unanimous? Okay.
And on Heine Road, I assume Bob has thoroughly reviewed this prior to Ron's review. Is that correct, Ron? This has,
I don't know what this is.
Heine Road Bridge.
I don't have anything on that.
This came from you, or, no, it came from Amy and was sent to you. Have you had a chance to review the Heine Road?
I probably have had a chance to do so, but I'm not sure that I have. When did
Well,
you-
it came yesterday afternoon.
When?
It
Yeah,
came yesterday
yesterday.
afternoon.
Yeah, she
I'd
just
like
said,
for Ron
she
to
just
do-
said that, she just said that to us, yeah, to get ready for today when she was gonna be here.
Yeah, I reviewed it last night and have some questions. I'd like for Ron to review that before we
I'll
take
take a look
action
at
on it.
If I don't have it, I'll get with
I mean, you had all last night.
I did. I'm not sure it's been opened.
Mary Ann, what you might do is give Amy a call on your questions.
Do you know if Bob, I guess I'm a creature of habit. Bob's my go-to guy. Before we tap into the Bob clock,
You can give Bob a call.
what knowledge do you have of Bob's involvement with this rather large expenditure? I mean, this is a big bridge.
Oh, well, I'm sure Bob's been very, very involved in that one. And,
I guess I have a question. If you could put on your IACC cap, BFS is right across the street from where the commissioners meet every weekend after Thanksgiving,
Okay.
Butler, Fairman, Seaford. Have they been involved with the association, supportive of our mission, that sort of thing? Because their headquarters is just kitty corner from where we meet every November.
I'm sure they're a vendor at our show, but I can't
they?
specifically answer your question on that.
They have personnel at every show. 'cause
Show,
I know
Do
yeah.
they?
personnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
They no longer have a booth, but they do
I was
have
gonna
personnel
say,
there.
I went on their website and none of their key personnel were familiar to me. It's just so ironic that they're about a mile from where we gather and
Right.
I didn't recognize any of them. Not that you have to support our mission, but their mission was so driven by their engagement with civil engineering associations and I don't know. It was very price-driven and that sort of thing. I just don't know much about them, and I was just curious about the scoring and, the other. This just comes to us without Bob's input, and I feel just a little bit like the training wheels are off without Bob's guidance and that sort of thing. So
I will say it already has been through NDOT review.
I know
So-
it has, yeah. Right. I'm not saying anything. It's just that BFS is certainly a highly reputable firm, but I was searching for county road bridges in their portfolio, found none, and was looking for that reassurance in the absence of Bob, and was kind of disappointed. And then I do have questions in the contract itself, like the final review not coming to the county, but just being this whole document is very NDOT driven and not locally driven at all. Those are summation of my questions. And before we spend this, and I guess my other questions are the volume of right-of-way, the acreage of right-of-way that we're anticipating them negotiating, because this is very much in the hands of BFS negotiating right-of-way. So there are a lot of questions, and this is a very large bridge. And when I see right-of-way negotiations out of our hands, I get a little nervous. Not that we have reason to be concerned about right-of-way.
Yeah, well, Bob was, in the beginning on this, Bob was fully involved on the point system that they utilize in the hiring of Butler Fairman on this particular project. But
Right.
those are all good questions
Just-
that, yeah.
First time riding without training wheels.
I don't think.
I'd appreciate it. I mean, we've only had this 20 hours, so I think we need to just take a closer look at it.
So Amy has one more item. Bridge 225 Beard Road. She has the title sheet that she emailed to me. She asked if you would please sign that so it can digitally be placed with the plans.
Okay. Give it to Denny right
Start
there.
with you, if you don't mind.
motion on this? Just for the record?
We can if you want, yeah.
So move to sign off on the title sheet for Beard Road title sheet?
Second.
Unanimous.
You never know, right?
That's right. Okay, very good. All right, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Beth. Okay, Steve Higginbotham.
Have a hodgepodge of stuff today. The start with the projects, kind of a slow week with the holiday, and then folks taking some vacation prior to the holiday and items being tied up in shipment in places. But the work continues on the courthouse HVAC punch list, just a few more items left on that. The jail bond project, remember I think last week or week before last, I passed out a schedule to you of how that was going to flow into the day rooms. Well, you can throw that out the window right now because there's product that's still sitting in places that shipment is slow, and they don't want to shut down a day room until all the equipment and products in place. So that was supposed to start the 26th in one of the day rooms, and everything was not here, so that's been pushed back a bit. The jail and courthouse security equipment, recall you approved the bid, and the contracts are being prepared and will be forwarded to Ron before the week is out, so that you can have look to consider that next week. No change in the guardian ad litem office, and then the online permitting. We had our kickoff meeting last week with the company that's going to do our online permitting, with all the departments that will be involved in creating the workflow schedule so that this software can be built to accommodate our permit. And the tentative start date to have those meetings is after the June 15th opening date.
June 15th.
When all of our employees come back is when we're shooting for.
Okay, not to be confused with the building opening date of, now, I guess the working date is July 6th.
Correct.
Right.
That's correct, yeah.
I mean, that's sort of a return date is June 15th, but the opening date July 6th.
Correct,
The employees come back on the 15th. The public is allowed in on the 6th, right?
yeah. Which that segues right into the next item. And as we move towards that July date, I had a call from a department head yesterday. As you know, we currently open the door at, the door is locked, getting in, all the doors are locked getting into this building, but not everybody has a key to get into this building. So we didn't particularly want to issue 114 keys to get into this building. So recall, we leave the door unlocked from 7:30 to 8:30. The security guard does not come in till 8. That's the hours. So yesterday morning or day before, I forget which day it was, but some customer came into the building between 7:30 and 8, and they were roaming the building, and obviously there was no one there to stop them, and so this department head called and was concerned that this person was in the building. So they suggested that we don't open the building till 8, which, you know, that creates a problem for employees who don't have a key, because some of them come in at a little bit before 8, that we have some start at 7:30. It's my understanding those that start at 7:30 do have keys to get in, but not everybody that comes in at 8 has keys. And then as you see today, we have a public meeting today where that door, I think, should be open at least for the public to access if they want to. The security guard's not here now, so the door is unlocked to make this meeting accessible. And then Friday, the security guard was not available, and I think Beth spent some of her day maintaining guard at the door. So as we work towards the June 15th date, where you're going to have all the people back, all of our employees back, so I think customer appointments are going to pick up after that. So I don't have an answer for you, but it is an issue that we need to resolve.
One of the things that I'm looking at in that particular case is, one, I've got to meet with the sheriff on the downtime on our security guard to see what he can do, but also with the CARES Act, looking at having the sheriff hire an additional person that we could utilize out here. And with that person kind of being dedicated to COVID-19, we could get that paid for out of the CARE Act. So we could get that part-time person at least covered for the rest of the year in that position, which would help us fill in this position when our security guard is gone for training, which is what he's doing today, and for lunch hour break time that he has on there. So that's something I'm working on. To do that, I will be meeting with Sheriff Rutter on that to see what we can work out on that, but we would be able to fully pay for that position out of the CARES Act. So I'm sure council will be more in favor of that.
Another consideration is that we do have time before at least the general public has access to the building, is to prepare employee identification tags. I know the Public Health Department has prepared those very quickly. We haven't discussed that for quite some time. I think now is a good time to talk about that. Is that something that has come up in your discussions?
Hasn't come up in any discussion, well, for a while. And of course, we had tags.
What would that do for this
I
issue?
was going to say
How would that help this issue?
It would help identify individuals who belong in this building, a photo ID with a prox card.
I'm not sure that's a big issue at this point, because I think all the department heads and the security guard that's here, I'm not sure misidentification's been the issue. It's been a non-employee that's coming in the building when the doors are open.
Well, I mean, if we, for example, get a new person, plus it allows for interchangeable security people, maybe not all of the courthouse security people would recognize, or a new security person would recognize. Or if, in an emergency, a buildings and ground person is allowed to open the door at 7:45 if a security person is out ill. I think it's time to consider, as a part of our safety regimen, the preparation of photo ID prox cards. We just haven't talked about it for quite some time. I think now's a good time to talk about it. How do you feel about it, Denny?
We already have cards. Nobody wears them anymore because the elected officials didn't wear them, so their staff didn't wear them.
Well,
I was issued one when I became a commissioner.
Yeah, and that is, we do have prox cards with our photos on them. And the fact that there was a lackadaisical enforcement
Yeah.
of its
Right.
use, so I don't think it's the card itself, it's the application of the card and how it's used and how it's enforced. I mean, it got to the place to where initially you could, if you didn't prox to get into the building with your photo ID, and it sent an alarm to the jail, they would actually respond.
Yeah.
But then
They quit
It
responding.
quit, and so people quit using their Prox card, and, I mean, I'm guilty, I don't even carry it anymore.
Mine's
I
in
don't
my
know where
glove.
mine is.
So I don't
either.
think it's,
I have mine, but you can't tell it's me anymore.
and I'm not suggesting we shouldn't have Prox cards,
It's
but
just, I'm throwing it out for discussion, in this time of security awareness and that sort of thing.
but I don't think that the Prox card is the, we should have Prox cards, there's no question. They should be used and they should be enforced. But for the immediate issue of what we do with this building and locking it down when and bringing people into the building.
I don't
So,
like the 8 o'clock unlock, Steve.
I don't
That's
either.
not gonna work.
I don't like that at all.
Everybody's
We need
come-
it at 7:30.
It needs to be
'cause a lot of them come
7:30
in
and-
early.
well, I appreciate hearing that, because that's kind of what I thought. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction
Yeah.
to one issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will address the one issue with the department that the person came in the building to see.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know if anybody's
It's happened.
citizen that has, once in a great while, somebody
We-
comes in or.
Yeah, it was a fluke.
Yeah.
We had the wind kept the doors open on the west end one day.
I heard they are open a lot because of the
Not
wind.
anymore, because I took the seal out. You can't do it anymore. There's-
Okay.
When the door's sealed, I mean, it had a tight seal. So if you open the door and if there was a little wind and it held it open, it wouldn't shut all the way. So I took that seal out, so now it shuts. So that doesn't happen anymore.
How about downstairs? Is the seal out downstairs, or is that open too in the wind?
That one doesn't get the wind.
Really haven't
You
had a
talking about
problem.
the east one?
Yeah, east door.
I've not heard of a problem with that one.
Okay, it just made me wonder if the west door was
No, it's-
open in the wind, how
it's the
about the
west
east?
door on this top
I know,
floor.
that's what I'm talking about, the 4th Street door.
But I took
I
care of
mean,
that one.
so what are you gonna do about unlocking the door at 7:30? Is that, you're gonna keep unlocking the door at 7:30?
Well, I think that's what I just
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see no reason.
Yeah.
Because
why we
8
shouldn't.
o'clock poses a problem.
Yeah,
Because you've
people-
always got employees standing out there waiting
Yeah,
to come
That's
in.
not fair to
Yeah.
them. That's not
And,
fair.
and
They should be,
And none of them would be able to clock in Kronos at the correct
you're
time
not,
because,
I know you're not supposed to, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still get here early, have their coffee,
Right.
get settled in.
Get
And on
ready.
days that it's raining, I mean, they're standing out there.
yeah,
And-
we want to lock it at 7:30.
7:30.
Okay.
So I think, rather than, let's just address the problem that
well,
that
yeah,
caused it.
and one person getting
Yeah.
in accidentally is not a crisis.
Yeah.
It's just a
That,
fluke.
that was my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're spending $1.4 million on a security system?
Well, we haven't got it in place yet, Mary.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with what
Doesn't
we're
have nothing
talking
to do
about.
Well, I mean, I think we're not consistent here. Either security is a major issue or
boy.
it isn't. I mean,
We're
Prox
talking,
cards
we're
are-
talking letting people in because of COVID-19. We're not talking a security issue.
Well-
Normally, if the new security system was in, it would be off during the day because the
Yeah.
people are
Right.
coming in and out of the door.
I mean, this person who gets in between 7:30 and 8 could
Didn't have
have a
anything to do with the
raging
security
fever.
system.
Could have a cough and a fever and all the rest.
I
mean,
agree. So what's your answer?
If that person who is infected can get in between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, it is a COVID issue.
So what's your answer?
Prox cards.
Well, that's not going to do it.
No,
That'll
no,
help.
no. You want a Prox card to unlock the door.
I just think we ought to address the absence of Prox cards
But-
as a part of the overall issue of reopening our buildings.
But
Okay,
I
two
don't agree.
two issues, two
yeah,
issues.
it's a whole different issue
I-
and
it's-
very costly, too.
Yeah, remember,
Yeah, I
we
mean-
didn't go with that option of having Prox cards unlock the doors.
Because it was too expensive.
I mean, it was.
Right, I'm talking about having security guards being able to recognize whether or not somebody belongs in the building.
And I'm telling you, when there's a security guard there, he recognizes the employee. The issue came up, the security guard wasn't sitting there. That's the issue.
Well, I'm going to work on that with Randy, okay?
But he's
All
never
right,
sitting there from 7:30 to 8.
That is correct.
Those are
Right.
not
that's right.
hours.
Can you ask Randy if he could adjust his hours so he comes in at 7:30?
Then he'd
Well,
leave at
then he
4:30.
needs- Then he leaves early,
Then he'd
or you
leave
have
at
to pay him
4:30.
overtime.
He only
So-
works between 8 and 5.
Right,
So if he came in at 7:30, then he'd leave at 4:30, so we'd have the problem at the other end.
for a
Or
half
could
hour.
he take a little longer lunch hour?
Well, who covers that
Then you
then?
have the problem.
Who
Covering
covers
that.
his lunch hour?
Better to have it in the middle. I
Really?
mean,
Really
to be
is.
I don't
creative
think
here, I mean,
so.
it's really
Noon to
important.
1 o'clock or 11:30 to 1 doesn't help.
I mean, the most important time for him to be here is between 7:30 and
Oh, it's not either.
8:30. I
No,
mean, that's
it's
more
not.
important than
No, it's
All
not.
right,
1:30
Steve, what
to
else do you got?
2:30.
All right,
We
the,
could solve this without hiring somebody new, just change his hours to critical points in time.
Let's move on.
Marion, did you have some thermometers coming?
Yes,
Yeah, there's 6 more in.
got 6 of them, got them yesterday, she put them on my desk.
Okay,
And
so,
there's 20 more coming in the middle of June.
all right, I had 5 delivered Friday, and the voting sites needed these, so I distributed those to the voting sites. These were intended to go to each one of the departments as we open back up, because I understand one of the
Right.
protocol is to take temperatures twice a day of employees who are here. Is that still
Right.
going to be the
Yeah.
protocol? So it made sense that we needed to provide offices with that. So I've got 30 more coming this week.
Thermometers?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know you were ordering them too.
Well, that's one of the other problems too, is, everybody's ordering stuff and,
Well, we'll utilize them, we're not gonna have too many, so we'll
What'd
be
you
okay.
pay for
Yeah.
yours?
$72.
65.
And they're touchless. They'll be
Yeah.
here this week.
Mine were 65.
So the voter sites got their supplies from the state. Debbie thinks they'll be sufficient to get them through I'm not sure what rate they're using their supplies. So with these masks that came in, what's our intent? Do you want these delivered to the offices?
Well, I've gotta
Because-
work on that before people come back in, I'll have that all worked out, and how many we take to a particular office. And
Well, it'd be
stuff.
neat, rather than me moving those boxes
Right.
to storage.
Right,
It'd be
yeah.
neat to just deliver them right from there.
I
Where they
agree,
belong, yeah.
I agree. Because I got another shipment coming in just like that, probably in another week, so, yes, I agree.
So those boxes are all masks?
Yes,
Wow. How many were out?
126,000 sitting right there.
Because
Yeah,
that paper that I handed out to you,
with the judges,
let's refer to that just a minute.
you'll find out how many we're gonna use pretty quickly.
This is what has been sent down by the Supreme Court for the courts to open back up. And so that document that I've given you is the synopsis of this document. And I just simply highlighted some of the areas that would impact building and grounds potentially, and the equipment that they would need. So on that first page, on page 18, there in the farm, it talks about providing masks and personal protection equipment. And so Judge Todd has been has been appointed by the local judges to write the protocol that will be submitted to the Indiana Supreme Court for the opening of our courts. So he is writing his protocol off this document, and it is due Friday. So when I see that document, I'll give it better idea for you folks to understand what the expectations is going to be of the courts for opening back up.
Steve, you might tell them what you and I have talked about and what we anticipate the usage. It sounds like we got 126,000 here.
Well-
Actually, I have 378,000 on order right now, but what we anticipate between now and the end of the year that we could use, what do we come up with, 300,000 roughly that we could use between now and the end of the year?
Remember, these are disposable masks. There's the expectation that, our employees would wear one a day. And it's the court's expectation that everybody that comes into the court is provided a mask. So not only just employees, but any, jurors, spectators, anybody that would participate in a court hearing in our 6 courts would be required to wear a mask.
Well, but at least 50% of our citizens already have their own.
Understand.
masks.
I understand.
Denny, that's really a high number. I think you'll find, and I've sat at Walmart a couple of times trying to count to see how many people actually are wearing the mask. The best I could do was get 15%, and I sat there for an hour on one day counting people. I had 15% of the people coming out were wearing masks. About 10% were male, and the others, 90% were always females. More females were wearing the mask than the males. And I've done that 3 times now. That's an unsophisticated survey.
yeah.
But I wanted to know how many people are really doing this, you know. We're encouraging them to do it, and the number is much smaller than what I thought.
So will the judges require it rather than encourage it?
My guess is they're going to require some things that is beyond the norm.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Because you can imagine when it gets into social distancing, what they do during a jury call.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Give them the jury call number that
Well,
the judge
the
told us.
typical, for example, one of the first trials out of the box is a murder trial. And Judge Horn is anticipating calling 150
150 to 200
potential
people.
jurors. And then in this document is also a questionnaire that they are suggesting is added to the jury questionnaire, you know, when you receive it in the mail, and it all has to do with COVID-19. So there's some other things that could cause people to not be on the jury in addition to this normal question. So they're anticipating the need to possibly call more potential jurors because of the questionnaire that would be sent out.
I heard there was some talk of going to Elder Bierman or something for
Well,
a jury call.
there's a whole lot of things. There's, like, they could stagger hearings and put some of the jurors in each courtroom and stage them. I mean, there's just, you know.
Just a lot of
video-
discussion going on as to how to do
Videotape
it, yeah.
instructions, I mean, just.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what Judge Todd's putting together, is how this is gonna look, so.
Denny, we've looked at the Zoom type thing, and yes, Elder Bierman, where you could have possible jurors there, an attorney could be in the courthouse even through the Zoom and interviewing those folks and still keep the separation. And so it's been interesting in looking at all the possible locations of where we could do. We've even looked at Coleman, we've looked at Raper Center, we've looked at all large facilities, because when we first heard that, when Judge Horn said, well, it could be 150 to 200 people on call, we go, my God, where do we put those in the courthouse? Steve's looked at that, and we've already had to remove chairs and stuff out there to keep the social distancing apart on there. And
Where
so,
remove chairs where?
We're gonna be removing chairs, all those chairs that are along the walls, say like on the upper floor, where all those folks sit.
Judge
You
Dolan
mean out
got
in
his
the outside
chairs?
vestibule?
yeah.
I
Now,
trust
hold on.
you checked
Hold on.
with the good judge.
Well, this
knows. He
is
knows.
up on instruction, so
Yes.
they want these separated 6 feet apart.
How about the jury? Will it have to be seated 6 feet apart?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
been discussed, and that's, if they have to do that, then that creates the issue, okay, you put some of the jurors in the public gallery.
Yeah.
So then you don't have the public come in, because they don't want them intermingling with the jurors, so. a lot of
Another thing that
logistics.
we're looking at on that is petitions that we would put up. One of the judges already on his jury, remember, he wants across the full jury area, he wants a complete sneeze guard up there for that, so we're looking at that.
Where the attorneys go up and address the
So we're looking
jury.
at several different things now that we'll have to have made to be able to do this, yeah.
So going back to that first page, then, again, how it impacts our staffing and equipment, develop a plan to sanitize the courtroom after each hearing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Think about the logistics of that. We have 6 courtrooms. On a given day, there's a number of hearings that take place in there. Now, certainly, they're minimal because you have just a handful of people in, so you're talking about, clean the table. Whether or not court staff will do that on those small ones, but after a larger one, would there be a larger need to clean the entire courtroom where you have, more people?
Or can you use those spray sanitizers like they do in airplanes?
We do, and right now, those are on back order.
Everything we got in the back
Absolutely.
order.
I mean, that's what we want to do, but they're.
They're ordered.
And then on the second page, 19, ensure deep cleaning of the court facilities before returning. The third one down was an interesting one, which I hadn't even considered, but if my guess is we'll have to do something where the mail
Yeah.
is not distributed
As soon
as
One
soon
of
as
the
we
items-
receive it.
One of the items I'm looking at on the mail, when Steve and I had this discussion on the mail, we kind of looked at the mail we'd never thought about. But there is an ultraviolet wand, and I just ran across this a couple days ago, which you can utilize on mail or other surfaces that you can do this to help clean them up. And it's relatively inexpensive to do, so I hadn't had a chance to talk to Steve on that one yet. But I can see us possibly purchasing one of those to go over mail and stuff.
The only problem is the volume of mail that we get in to do each one of those.
Oh, wow.
I understand ultraviolet light
Yeah.
is successful, but it's almost, you just need to quarantine the mail for a period of time.
Yeah, because what the
Put it out in
CDC
the
says 3 days.
Yeah.
And you
And then the
can,
problem
Some
comes,
days you can't do that. You can't
then the
wait
problem
3
comes
days.
if there's, because we get registered return receipt mail that is time critical.
Time sensitive.
And so if we hold that for 3 days.
Just don't do it to the absentee ballots.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I guess that's right. That's true.
Oh, okay.
That would put that another thing. Okay, so you can see the logistics of just opening and back up the courthouse. On the second page, there's some additional things. On the third page, on page 20,
There's a question back on 19.
yep,
Talk about a costly bullet point.
which one?
Installing non-touch door handles.
Yeah.
We are not going to do that in our courthouse,
No,
okay?
I don't anticipate the judges suggesting that. I think they are reasonable, but there is some traffic management that possibly could be done. For example, I know one of the courtrooms, the bailiff is not even going to let, even after we open, is not even going to let people in their office because of touching handles and things. They will meet them in the hallway.
Okay, open the doors instead. That's one way to eliminate door touching. Open them for them. We're not going to
Yeah.
have automatic doors in that.
No,
area.
I didn't anticipate that, and I don't
Okay.
anticipate the judges.
So
I'm
we
just-
can just
I'm
check
just,
that one
I'm
off.
just highlighting these so that you can see the potential of what we're considering.
Wow.
Page 20, the top one, the temperature checks of everybody who comes into the building. Now, they're doing that now, but there's an anticipation that that will continue after we open the buildings to the public, so you can see that workload that's going to be put on someone to do a lot more temperature testing. I don't know how you're going to handle that,
well,
but
the sheriff in the past has called in reserves to do things like that. And that's
just,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can just see the volume that this
Sure.
could create.
Well, if it happens at the entrance, then you've got a juror who's come in and suddenly is turned away and
Correct.
there's got to
That-
be communication with the court,
Yep.
or that
Right.
juror is going to get
Yep.
a citation
Right,
for
right.
failure to honor the
Yep,
jury call.
that
We do
exactly was
have,
brought up.
on order, automatic temperature scanning devices, which we will be able to put in all of our entrances. So as folks come in, it will scan them and it will tell us whether they have a fever or not. It'll give you a green signal. If it's green, you know they don't. If it's red, that person's got a temperature. So that will move up the process considerably over where we individually have to
How much does that
take the
cost?
units. And we're buying that through the CARES Act, and it's all reimbursable. So we do have that on order. Of course, that is coming from overseas again.
How many of those for health department as well
We
as
have,
ambulance
we have 3 currently coming in, which would be one for the courthouse and one for here, and then one over at Public Health.
Oh, they don't have that much traffic.
So they don't deserve it?
I mean, They could use a handheld fever thermometer.
I don't know, everybody that has someone that's born or dies
What?
tends to go there.
What?
Get a birth certificate.
Oh,
death
yeah.
certificate. I think they do have a lot of traffic.
Yeah, they claim they have, I'm just telling you what they claim. I've never seen this volume, but they indicate 50 or 60 people a day because of the birth and death certificates.
Okay.
And then on page 20, again, you're looking at a potential manpower, especially with security. If you have evening and weekend hearings, because you've got to spread out the number of hearings that you can have at any given time in the courthouse. Because there's a thought that not all the courts would have a hearing at the same time, so that you don't have that volume of people. So that spreads out the time frame that you've got to have hearings, and so they would consider evenings and weekends, which then you would need a security person on hand. And then the last page, again, the courtroom cleaning procedures, whether or not, again, the volume and the frequency of cleaning the courtrooms and also the areas outside the courtrooms where people would have been waiting to get into the court. So I don't have any answers for you yet on this. The judge will have his report and guidelines issued by the end of the week, and I'll share those with you next week as we try to address some of this stuff.
Email them to us when you get them from the judge so we can,
If he, okay,
Yeah.
it may be a scanned copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, PDF,
that'd be fine.
yeah.
Okay, good.
And then I made contact with after you passed out the 4-H guidelines, there were a number of things on there that, talked about sanitizer, all that stuff. And so I reached out to Alicia, what she got, and so her response was that she thinks they're good on masks because she's going to provide their own masks. A local vendor was going to do their signage for them. The biggest thing was hand sanitizer stations. And we've got stations that can be utilized for that. It's just making sure to get the product to go in it, but I think we've got a long enough lead time that we can get the hand sanitizer issue resolved for them. I did bring in a couple of the hand sanitizers from the fairgrounds because, again, we've been having difficulty finding the dispensers. And we have, 20 or 25 out there that's on stands. They're out here, there's 2 of them out here in the hallway. You saw them, these black ones, they're pretty sturdy.
Any help you can give them on that would be great.
So we're gonna move these here for now until ours orders come in. So I think we're getting close on being good on sanitizer.
We're working on it.
And you gotta be careful what sanitizer you buy and make sure it's, got the alcohol, and because some of them are peddling some stuff that doesn't kill virus. It kills bacteria, but it doesn't kill virus. And then we had an accident in front of the jail late yesterday afternoon. Somebody ran through our lights, our Ballard lights out there in front. Those nice looking gray ones. Took out 2 of them, and these are broke off at the base. Of course, it ripped the electric out of the conduit, and this is about the 3rd accident we've had in that location over the past couple of years. And I don't know.
Where is it, Steve?
It's right there in those where that pull-off is to go in the front of the jail, where those gray Ballard lights are. And I don't know what it is about making that corner, but anyway, the guy left the scene, but they found him, so I do have insurance. I hope he's got good insurance, because this is probably going to cost $10,000 to replace him.
Oh, my gosh.
And then just to follow up on something that Ron had remarked on, we're coming up to the deadline of the switchover. We realize that's kind of it's not a direct cutoff date because some of the shared responsibilities, but I will be sending Eric just a reminder, about the cleaning and the
Yeah,
records.
they want a really itemization of what, I think they know what services they're getting, but
Yeah.
just don't assume anything.
So I'll copy you on that, and I'll copy Christine, and I think that's all. Oh, I had a request, and again, this is ones we're bringing to you for use of the fairgrounds. Had a request from a local auctioneer to use the sheep barn on June 3rd for a personal property auction. My recommendation is no. I think
Say
it's,
that again.
it is a personal property auction that the auction company wants to hold at the fairgrounds. We have several of these a year at the
Right.
fairgrounds, and this is one that the auctioneer wants to hold on June 3rd in the sheep barn.
Ooh, June
It's just a month early,
And I think it's
Yeah.
a little bit early.
yeah,
That's next Wednesday.
yeah, yeah.
There would be more than 100 people, possibly?
Yeah, see, I asked that question, and of course, you
knows?
can't dictate it's a
Right.
personal property auction sale.
Must be pretty big if he wants to hold it out there.
Well, they've started, if, they like it inside, because if rain or shine, and if it's got a lot of antiques and things like that,
Yeah,
we
it's
have
just-
several of these a year.
Too many people and too
But,
close of a
I-
confined area. Yeah, I agree with you, yeah.
It wouldn't be a successful auction with fewer than 100 bidders.
I don't think so, but
I think that would be a violation of the governor's plan.
yep.
I move that we reject that request.
Second.
Unanimous.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Beth, you have anything else? Okay, one of the things that
While Steve's still here.
I did pass out a draft that Beth put together for me to send out to all of our employees on the reopening. I gave Ron a copy, gave both of you a copy to look at. This would be what we would send out to everybody. And if you have anything else you'd like to add in here, why, we certainly can do that. And
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to give them at least a 2-week notice to allow for childcare, elder care. And I think we've told some employees we would give them at
Oh,
least a 2-week
I
notice.
think they
to
all
get their
know
lives
already
in.
that we're going to open back up on the 15th of June, but this will be sent out, if you have any suggestions, definitely by tomorrow. I'd like to get this out to everybody.
Oh, I don't think they all know. I think the managers have, kind of know, but I don't think it's been widely shared with everybody. And I think it needs to come from us as to what to expect. And I think an official notification that everybody needs to come home, and those with underlying conditions and those with concerns, we really need to officially invite them to come to HR and discuss that privately.
That's what it says
That's
here.
why we're telling them in
Right,
here to do
right,
that, yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
think this is very well written, Beth. Thank you very much.
Well, what's the holdup of putting this out?
I just wanted you guys to look
Okay.
at it before I
Well, then I
had Beth
move-
go ahead and send
I
it out.
move to approve it as
Okay.
written.
All right, all right.
And Ron, you have no concerns about
No.
terminating that resolution?
Well, I'll have them do that in their board meeting on the
10th. Like,
Okay.
well, I'm not gonna be here for the 10th, but
Well, couldn't we do it now and
Yeah,
make it
why
effective?
not terminate it now,
Yeah, yeah.
effective June
effective
14th?
June 14th.
Yeah.
Okay.
But first,
All right.
we've got to get approval on this, and then we'll
Okay.
do
Then
that.
I would
Alright.
change this to the commissioners
Have terminated.
have terminated this resolution to end act.
Yes.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Wait, is there anything in that resolution that should continue? Before we terminate it, maybe we ought to take a look at it to see if there's anything in there that
I don't have it in front of me.
unintended.
I don't have it
circumstance.
right in front of me
Quite a
either.
bit of it is out of date because it was based on the first, one of the first.
First on the
executive
governors,
orders that
yeah.
governor put out.
I think one of the things in it was that employees had to wear a mask when contacting the public, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think you want that to
I-
continue.
Yeah, there,
Yeah, I
I
still
think,
that-
want that.
But the
yeah.
governor's order requires that now.
Yeah.
We
why don't we
don't,
take a look at it?
the
and
governor's order
terminate
already
it on
requires
June
that if you deal
3rd?
with the public, you have to
Will you
wear a
be here
mask.
tomorrow, or next week, Wednesday, Ron?
Pardon?
Will you be here next Wednesday, June 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a look at that and see if there are some attributes of that that maybe should become a new resolution or something.
Or will be covered in the protocols and
Right.
procedures.
And
if you're
Steve and
gonna
I
put
are
in
still
place.
working on the protocols. Kim's working on the questions and answers on frequently asked questions. We're gonna have all that together to give to all the employees. So when they
Yeah.
come back in, and we'll
And we
have
need
all
to
that
review
in
that
place.
next Wednesday.
Well,
I mean, I think we need to review
Well,
that
I want
before
to
it
put
goes
this out now.
So we will.
Yeah,
keep
this needs to go out, but the protocols.
We don't have to rescind the resolution.
we're-
We
Keep
can,
it that you
we're
haven't
still-
rescinded
right,
the plan.
yes,
Right.
just as is.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at it before we
Understood.
rescind it.
we'll do our best.
I
to
have a
it.
motion on the floor.
Yeah, okay.
Second,
Unanimous. Okay, we'll get this out. And Steve and I both have been collecting, and we're gonna work with Beth to try and put all the stuff together so that we have it for the employees, the same as the frequently asked questions. We got the first draft on that, and the procedures as to what we expect employees to do, what we expect them to do in their individual offices, how they clean, et cetera, and so on like that. And we'll have all that down on
I
paper.
think the requirement that employees who regularly come in contact with the public shall wear a protective face covering derives from your executive order, joint executive order 3,
with the mayor. yeah.
and not the resolution 2020-002.
Okay, so that wasn't in the resolution, because we do, even though we're gonna have the sneeze screens up and everything, we still want those to go up to the counter to be wearing the face mask as they're interacting with the.
Marion's right, I'll take a look at the resolution
Okay,
itself.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you, Ron.
Make sure that
And,
there's no unintended
you know, I
consequences.
really am not happy with disregarding the need for employee ID, because frankly, when you're wearing a mask, you know, identifying ourselves with an ID, I think is something we really need to think about in this security and safety heightened environment in which we're in. I want to stick a pin in that and come back to it before we walk away from it completely. I mean, when everybody's running around in masks when they're meeting the public, I think there is some kind of reassurance to the public when they are dealing with a masked person to at least have some identification that this is an official representative of their local government.
Well, they're gonna be in one of those offices, Mary Ann. They're gonna have a sneeze screen in front of them. They certainly ought to know that they're an employee of Wayne County government.
And everybody's got one. Get it out and wear it. We don't need to make new
Not
ones. We've got
everybody
one.
has one.
Well, then they should get one. The jail makes them for them.
That has not been
It's-
part of the
Recently.
orientation.
It's
Okay.
been a
Yeah, they
long
haven't done it
time.
recently for the new employees, yeah.
So everybody who's, except the new employees, have
There's
one.
a lot of employees who see people outside their office environment.
All right, I say we talk about this later.
I think it's an issue, especially in this day of facial coverings.
But please be sensitive to the fact that some employees do not want their first and last name on the name tag. when
That's
they deal
right.
with the public.
Reed only puts the
Yeah,
first
just
name
like-
on.
Right, there are a lot of issues to be discussed, and I think privacy is one of those issues.
Well, I don't disagree, Mary Ann, but we really got our hands full right now just in getting everything together and getting it on paper to be able to get it back so that we're ready to open up on the 15th. And trying to get new ID cards and stuff, and most people probably couldn't find them, would be my guess.
Well, and I think we need to address, you know, what they were in the past. I suggest you put that topic before Christine Stenson this afternoon. She certainly has a point of view regarding
ID
employee
badges?
Yes. Why do you think the health department all have ID badges?
Well, that's good, because they leave their facility and they go out to a restaurant and
So-
walk in, and they should definitely
So does the
have, like,
assessor.
identification.
They wear badges when they go out.
Right,
So
they
ways
should.
and measures.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, they all have
So
them.
anybody who goes
And,
out of this building should
and I
have it.
agree, they should have them, all
Well,
those folks.
even people inside the public
Yeah,
health
we know
department
it.
who are, you know, doing birth and death certificates inside the health department, they wear them too. It's just,
Okay, the other thing we're looking at, to kind of fill you in, through the CARES Act and the dollars and cents that they've asked us to do, we're looking, as you know, Denny and Ron and the folks have been working real hard on the revolving loan fund. We're also looking at other ways that we can assist and help the small businesses. One of the areas that has been a problem has been the masks. A lot of folks have stepped up and made the homemade masks, and really have some very unique and unusual designs on some of those masks that they're doing. That's part of what we want to do with the distribution of the masks that we're buying, is that we would be able to give them some masks, as well as to be able to give them hand sanitizers to assist them in COVID-19, of holding down the fact that we want to keep people as safe as possible. So we do have currently 376,000 of the masks coming in. We have our first shipment here of 126,000. I've also secured 80,000 for the city of Richmond that will be coming in here within a week for them. Also, the hand sanitizers, we're still working on that. Pricing structure, a lot of this stuff is, some folks out there are really trying to gouge people. So it takes a lot of time on the phone. I spent a lot of time in here last night. It was about 11 o'clock when I left, but I've been calling folks and working to get the pricing structure to make sure, even though we're been allocated this funding through the CARES Act, it's still taxpayers' money. So I'm working very diligently to be able to purchase this stuff at the best price that I can find throughout the United States. And when we do find vendors, not only do we have to vet them, I had one yesterday that Beth did an excellent job for me on vetting, that was out of New Jersey. They tracked it down and came in and said, Ken, this is really looks to be a real legit company. I know, Mary Ann, you were working with some of yours there. It takes time for us to vet these, but we feel it's important that we supply these items to the individuals. Steve and I originally, in working with the courts, anticipated between now and the end of December that we could use some 300,000 masks just within our complex here. So that means we have to buy more additional masks and get them on order. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks from China for cargo shipment to get here. And we've been monitoring that very closely, and so on the big shipments like this, that's about what it's taking on some of those to do. So we're looking at other ways that we might be able to assist and to help folks through the CARES Acts on there. Another area that I'm beginning to look at is with our food banks that we have here in Wayne County. The possibility of us being able to assist them in acquiring some additional food for them to pass out to folks. So that's another area that we're looking at, and I'm trying to take these one step at a time as I'm working on them to see what we can do to assist people in the area. I think the food bank's a good area. There's a lot of folks who could use some additional help and use some food at this time. So that's an area that, and we have several food banks within the Wayne County area that we could work with on there. So we're also, if you have an idea or something of something you think we can do don't hesitate to tell me.
Well, the Wayne County Food Council is the clearinghouse for all of those, rather than working individually.
Independent,
The collective organization would be the place to start.
So we'll be doing that, and there is a possibility, in a discussion I've had on the state side, that the CARE Act money, that they may be able to, they're working on something somehow to utilize that along with FEMA, which would take the $2.1 million we got and would increase that considerably also. So we'd have even more dollars available to us. So I'm trying to look at things that we can do and be very prudent as to how we spend those funds, whether we'll ever spend all of those dollars or not. We may not even do that, but that's what I'm working on at this time, and we'll keep at it, and we'll just keep working at it day to day on there to keep everybody safe and sound, and to continue, always say to our listening audience, consider, we recommend that you do wear your mask when you're out in the public, and what you're trying to do is protect somebody else. If you've got long distance, why, you're okay, you do not have to have your mask on at the time, but when you are out in the public, we ask you to consider the other folks that are out there and then wearing your mask. And we'll probably be holding another free giveaway on masks like we did through the public health on the drive-through on the weekend. So we'll probably be having another one of those again. So stay tuned, wear your mask, and we're adjourned for the day.